In a quiet province in Mindanao, a convoy of cars drives down a dusty road, headed for what should have been a routine political filing. Inside are women, lawyers, journalists. None of them make it out alive. 58 people ambushed and executed in broad daylight, buried in mass graves by men sworn to protect them. It would become the worst election-related violence in Philippine history, and the deadliest single attack on journalists in the world. A story of power, fear, and a system that almost let it happen again. This is Pinoy true crime story. And tonight, we remember the horror that was the Ampatuan Massacre. November 23, 2009. The morning sun had barely risen over the quiet hills of Sitio Masale, Barangay Salman, Ampatuan, Maguindanao. The trees stood motionless, as if listening. The soil beneath hid more than just roots. It would soon cradle bodies, soaked in blood and silence. At around 9 a.m., a convoy of vehicles rumbled down the unpaved road. In the lead car sat Jeneline Mangudadatu, wife of Buluan Vice Mayor Esmail Toto Mangudadatu. With her were his relatives, lawyers, aides, and a number of journalists, there to document what was supposed to be a simple political act. Filing Toto's certificate of candidacy for governor of Maguindanao, Toto did not go himself. He feared for his life, and rightly so. Maguindanao was ruled with an iron fist by the Ampatuan clan, a powerful political dynasty led by Andal Ampatuan Sr. and his son, Andal Unsay Ampatuan Jr. For years, the Ampatuans controlled the province with deep influence over the police, the military, and the local government. Their private army was said to number in the hundreds. Guns, fear, and money were their currency, and no one challenged them. Until Toto! The convoy headed toward the provincial capital, unaware that the road ahead had been blocked. Armed men, later confirmed to be members of the Ampatuan private army, intercepted the group. Shots rang out. Screams pierced the mountain air. They were dragged from their vehicles, one by one. Some were beaten. Some begged. None were spared. 58 people were murdered that day. Among them, Jeneline Mangudadatu, who had just kissed her children goodbye that morning. By Farina, Toto's sister, several of Toto's staff and supporters, 32 journalists and media workers, the highest number of journalists killed in a single event in the world's history. Even drivers and civilians who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The killers used heavy machinery, a government-owned backhoe, to dig mass graves even before the massacre happened. Some victims were buried alive. Others were riddled with bullets, then dumped into the pits along with their vehicles. The entire ambush had been planned, deliberate, calculated. Testimonies later revealed that Andal Ampatuan Jr. himself was present at the scene, allegedly giving orders and even pulling the trigger. The nation reeled. The global press watched. How could something so brutal, so public, happen in broad daylight and go unpunished? For weeks, the massacre dominated headlines. The Mangudadatu family demanded justice. The media cried out for their fallen colleagues. Human rights organizations flew in. The government was forced to act. The Ampatuans were arrested. Andal Sr., Andal Jr., and several of their relatives and bodyguards were charged with multiple counts of murder. But justice was far from swift. The case dragged on for a decade. Witnesses were threatened. Some were killed. Judges were replaced. Lawyers came and went. Accusations of bribery and intimidation plagued the proceedings. The courtrooms became battlefields. Survivors lived in fear. But on December 19, 2019, 10 years after the massacre, the verdict finally came. Andal Ampatuan Jr., Zaldi Ampatuan, and several others were found guilty. They were sentenced to reclusion perpetua, 40 years in prison, without parole. Others were acquitted. Over 80 suspects remain at large. Still, for many, the wounds remain open. The families of the victims continue to grieve. The fear still lingers in the hearts of journalists, politicians, and everyday citizens, proof that even in democracy, the powerful can still crush the weak if left unchecked. The Ampatuan Massacre was not just a political crime. It was a wake-up call. It revealed the cracks in our justice system, the reach of political dynasties, the danger of silence, and the unbearable cost of speaking truth to power. This is the story of the Ampatuan Massacre, and in the quiet after the gunfire, all that's left is the echo of voices, now gone, but never forgotten. The Ampatuan Massacre was not just a crime, it was a message about impunity, power, and silence, but the voices of the victims, journalists, mothers, sisters, daughters, still echo through history. It took a decade for the wheels of justice to turn, and even now, questions remain. Who else knew? Who else helped? And could it happen again? We tell these stories not just to remember the dead, but to demand justice for the living. This has been Pinoy True Crime Story. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about it. Because silence is what let it happen in the first place.